Hi everybody, welcome to the Poetry Vlog, and today's episode with SJ Sindu, what will we find?
So we're going to talk a little bit about bringing a poetic sensibility to prose writing, and also talking about trauma as a writer, and healing and making boundaries for yourself, and also femmephobia and how to navigate it as a femme writer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The call for comments today, because we talk a lot about the parts of ourselves we have to split or cut off because of femmephobia, is if you want to, while watching or after, chime in and share ways that you feel there are parts of yourself that you've had to kind of cut off or suppress or put away because of femmephobia, contribute to that kind of shared space where we can hold each other. And then also, as always, if you're like, what is femmephobia? And I finished the episode and I still don't know, or like anything else, just ask, because this is a teaching project and I'll respond in the comments. Other things to plug really quick, this episode was filmed with equipment provided by the Mellon Foundation, so thumbs up to them and a deep thank you. They're rad because they support public scholarship and multimodal writing, so appreciation. And as always, go to thepoetryvlog.com for all of the things that are digital. All right.
Okay.
And subscribe. Like and subscribe to this video. I still can't ask that with a straight face. Okay, ready? All right, everybody, enjoy. Bye. Hi everybody, welcome to Sindu's episode. Will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is SJ Sindu. I think of myself primarily as a novelist, but I also do a lot of hybrid writing. I'm Sri Lankan and Tamil and non-binary and queer identified.
Pause. Would you prefer I call you SJ instead of Sindu?
Sindu's great.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
So I have a website, sjsindu.com. It's sjsindu.com, and my handles on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook are all SJ Sindu, so you can find me.
Awesome. And I can attest to the fact that if you're especially into like femme content, yeah, it's great. So I personally appreciate that. And I want to give a special thanks for being on the Poetry Vlog, because a lot of folks who work across genres are a little bit less inclined to. So it's especially meaningful to me, and I know to students who ask for that type of content. So thank you for your vulnerability in that.
Yeah, of course.
Will you start by reading some of your work for us?
Yes. So this is a short piece. It's a flash piece called You Can Take the Boy Out of the War. And it's actually a piece that I wrote as preparation for writing my third novel. 3 years ago, before the guns, before the gangs and the fighting, before meeting his girlfriend Nandini, before dropping out of school, and even before laying eyes on Toronto, Arjun and his mother applied for immigration to Canada. You can take the boy out of the war, but you can never wash him clean. The immigration officer had meant, of course, that the war would rage inside Arjun forever. But when he stepped off the plane in Toronto, Arjun was afraid he would cave in and implode. 2 years ago. The night his big brother was shot, Arjun was helping his mother pray. She couldn't walk so well anymore, her feet having survived a mine explosion in Sri Lanka. But she was a deeply religious woman, and Arjun was nothing if not a dutiful son. And so while his big brother was being cornered in an alleyway on the way to the pizza where he worked, Arjun helped his mother hobble around the shrines at the Richmond Pilayar temple, 3 times around each god or goddess, stopping at each cardinal direction to touch the stone of the shrine wall and mumble something in Tamil that was too quiet for Arjun to catch. 1 year ago. The fight was his friend Kannan's idea. They mess with us, we mess with them. A handful of Tamil boys with cricket bats, sneaking into the Jamaican hood in Scarborough. This was the first time Arjun ever hit anyone, but the scene felt familiar. The smell of blood, he realized, was the same in every human. They jumped a bunch of Jamaican boys, beat them down with the cricket bats, and ran away feeling triumphant. Someone called the police, who never showed up. At the end, only Kannan was left, hitting a body again and again, even though its skull had already been crushed in, yelling, "Karupa, Karupa, Karupa." Now, Arjun never wanted to be the kind of man who closed his eyes as he died. But sometimes the body takes over. With this gun in his mouth, this warm metal resting right on his tongue, Arjun closes his eyes and waits. He thinks of his mother, of the way she cried over his brother's coffin, her wild hair swinging around her face. He thinks of himself in the coffin, wonders if the flames will feel warm when they burn him. Kannan hesitates with the trigger. Arjun thinks of his mother's favorite god, Murugan, and of the god love she so desperately wants. He thinks of his girlfriend Nandini and of the ways she tried to save him, and how he's failed her, and how she's probably better off now, how she'll grow up and get married and make a life with someone not him. He thinks of the way people die in movies, by saying, "You don't have to do this," to the friend holding the gun. He thinks of the immigration officer. "You can take the boy out of the war." Arjun feels dirty inside, caked over with mud and soil and blood he can never wash clean. It's better this way, maybe. This way the fighting will end. Arjun closes his eyes and waits.
Thank you. Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. It's something that I appreciate about your fiction writing, right, is that you still use kind of repetition and that sort of intonation element of writing to really kind of lock into a specific affect or feeling throughout the piece. And I personally love when I'm listening to stories and I feel like that kind of more like affective or kind of like embodied response is also kicking in, so that if I'm not understanding, right, each piece, I feel that I'm sort of connecting with each piece, and it's really skillful. I loved that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Why did you select this piece to talk about today, or not to talk about? Sorry. Why did you select this piece in terms of what you want to talk about today?
Well, this piece is really close to my heart. I started writing about the Sri Lankan War when I was probably 18 years old. I was in college. I had read Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, and I was like, I can write about war. And so I started writing about war, and I felt like all of my childhood trauma sort of came back, as if like my PTSD had been put on hold, on pause, since my childhood, and then once I started writing about it, all of it just came out.
Yeah.
And I started having panic attacks, and I had to stop. There was no way like to have good mental health that I could keep going, so I put the war stuff on hold for about 10 years.
The war stuff.
Yeah, the war stuff.
Yeah.
And for about 10 years, I didn't write about the war. I wrote other things, and I was in therapy, and I worked a lot on getting over my anxiety and panic. And now I'm at a point where I can start writing about the war again. And so this is one of the first pieces I wrote after I felt like I was ready. So I wanted to share that. But it's also, really condensed, really short piece. So I paid a lot of attention to like rhythm and cadence, and that's really what I want to talk about is how you can bring a poetic sensibility to prose writing, because I love that. I love when the voice of the prose can just sort of put me in a trance.
Yeah. How do you pay attention to that, or what's your process? This is a very boring question, I know, for interview style, but what does attending to the cadence do for you? Like, why do you feel that's like a powerful thing to do as a fiction writer, and like how do you attend to that in addition to the other dimensions?
So I started out writing poetry.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of
Everything
why
makes so much sense.
that's part of why it's so
Yeah.
important to me to have that kind of attention paid to the language. And when you're doing a novel length project, it's really hard to do because like you have, instead of 100 words, you have 80,000, and that's trying to make sure every 80,000 words is like perfect is not going to happen.
Yeah.
For me, my process is like, if I'm doing fiction, I'll start like thinking about character and desire and plot and all of those like fiction-y things, but I won't actually start writing until I hear the voice. I can't start writing until I hear what the voice is going to sound like, and I hear it in my head, and I can hear it at any point, right? Like I'll be washing dishes, and I'll be like, oh my god, that's it.
Yeah.
And I'll go and like write it down, and and it happens everywhere. But I've been sort of waiting for this third novel. I know what it's gonna be about. I know a lot of the characters. I know a lot of the timelines already, but I'm waiting for that voice to really solidify before I start writing.
Yeah. So you don't start writing when you have all those other pieces in place. You start writing when you hear that more like complex being.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
A couple of questions. First of all, and you can choose not to answer this because consent matters and boundaries matter.
Okay.
Right? So vulnerability should be selective. But what tools did you acquire and what types of work did you go through to get to a point where you could push through trauma and sort of like be able to write about that? But then also what I love about your writing is it's not just defined by reliving trauma, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So like, and I feel like oftentimes when poets ask poets, for instance, how do you get vulnerable enough to write your trauma on the page, right? This is less what I'm asking. It's almost the opposite, right? It's like, what type of work for yourself did you do that got you to a point where it wasn't just you having to relive your trauma in a way that wasn't healthy for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So for me, it was a lot of therapy, but it wasn't just like
therapy.
I don't really respond to the kind of therapy where you just like talk about your feelings and they don't do anything. I really like therapy where the therapist is super involved and gets it.
Yeah.
And I've gone through a lot of therapists because I feel like a lot of people don't get it and they're not used to working with that kind of trauma.
Especially in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
And yeah. I'm guessing like white U.S.-born continental therapists can sometimes be troublesome.
Yes. Yeah. So I actually was in therapy for a long time, but I didn't talk about that trauma. I was in therapy for like anxiety, but I never told them, and then I never told therapists that I like grew up in war. Like I just didn't, because I didn't.
You're in therapy for anxiety, and it just wasn't.
No, I addressed like anxiety from living in a sexist culture, living in a racist culture, my gender, my sexuality, but I never talked about war. And for some reason, it just felt too private, and I didn't trust people with it.
Yeah.
For a long time, I didn't even tell my friends, and it would take a long time for me to open up to partners even. And I sort of it probably took a long time because I took on the healing myself. And I was like, this is what I think I need. And I did a lot of exposure therapy.
Okay.
So I went, the sound of gunfire would just send me into a panic attack. And I went to shooting ranges and I shot guns. And I exposed myself to it over and over until and it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm not recommending it. It is
intense.
intense.
Students,
right.
Go to a shooting range.
It is really vulnerable and it's really hard to do. Yeah. But I knew that the way that I worked, as I got to know myself more, that's what works for me. And so I started doing that, and then I focused my writing on things that I was also really angry about and really passionate about. So I wrote a lot about sexuality, gender, race relations in the U.S., my family, my relationships with my mother and father, all of those things. It was a great distraction, and I could pour my writing energy into it. And my first novel is about being in the closet as a South Asian person and what that looks like. And so I could pour most of myself into it without thinking about the war at all, which was great.
Yep.
Yeah.
I appreciate that because I feel like oftentimes there's this assumption that the way through, I'm not saying writing can't be used as therapy. For some folks it can be.
Yeah.
But I think that like the idea that you have to heal through writing about it is like a horrible misconception.
Yeah.
And I think one of the dangers, because you're a teacher too, is that our students, and I see this especially with youth poets, think that they have to write their trauma as they're trying to heal.
Yes.
And it's so violent, especially
Yes.
like marginalized folks, right? Like queers, femmes, women and queers of color, like, etc. are like, I'm only valued if I'm writing my trauma.
Right. And it's especially dangerous because I think the publishing world and the world that's consuming this art is really eager to like tokenize and sensationalize and exotify this trauma. And so when especially when younger writers like put their trauma on the page and put it out in the world, it's gonna be taken and consumed in a way that they might not be ready for. Yeah, it's gonna be commodified, and it's gonna be boxed up and sort of marketed, which is terrible. And I try really hard to tell my students this, that like if there is something you're not ready to share with the world, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay, and you can, like, go through your healing process as you need. And for a long time, we were talking earlier about makeup and like, you know, just this femme-centered identity. And for a long time, I had a lot of, you know, that's part of my self-care, is that I'm really interested in that kind of stuff. I'm interested in the aesthetics of the body and the face and, like, how you can change yourself or use it as a canvas for your expression. But for a long time, I was really made to feel shame about that because the world is sexist and we're, you know, femmes are expected to present in a certain way, but not actually try and not be interested in it. We're supposed to wake up like this, which doesn't happen. And so I felt a lot of shame about it, but I'm trying to understand that, you know, like, if I'm not writing, that's okay.
Yeah.
If I'm taking a break, that's okay. If all I want to do on a writing night, or what was supposed to be a writing night, is like take a bath and put like a face mask and just like relax and watch something on Netflix, that's okay too.
Yeah. What I love about the current cultural moment is I feel like because of silly things, right? And again, there I go. Like, it's not even silly. Like makeup video tutorials.
Yes.
Right? I have a poet friend that does that, and I was like, and my visual artist friend, and she was like, nobody's called me a visual artist. You know, it's like there's this kind of, there is a moment, I think, possible right now where feminist is being reclaimed across genders and sexes.
Yes.
And it opens up the possibility for compassion and care without it having to be porous. Like, you don't have to be like, because I'm compassionate and caring, you have unlimited access to my pain and my suffering.
Yes.
It can just be like, here is what I can offer and here's what I can hear. And we can care, but also have like boundaries. You know? Yeah. I love that, actually.
I absolutely love it. And I totally watch makeup videos. And I'm you know, this is an indulgent thing that I'm just going to do, and I'm not going to feel guilty or shame about it. The way that, you know, culture and even partners, like masculine partners I've had have like in the past have been like, why are you know, you're better without makeup, or you don't need to wear anything. I'm like, that's also a kind of shaming. Like, this is my face, and I will do whatever I want with it. Just like this is my page, and I will do whatever I want with it. You know, it's all of a piece. And I think that if you're femme-identified in any way, or like presenting as femme, you get told what to do in your writing, with your makeup, with your skincare, with your fashion, with your body, everything, with what you eat. And like when I was younger, I think probably before like a year ago, I fully, completely believed that I would be a no-name writer forever. Like, you know, like what they call a mid-list author.
I'm not in fiction world.
Oh, right.
I think I know what you mean.
Yes. Like,
my version is just like, literally, I don't write the kind of poems that will be widely read.
Yeah, that's basically the same thing. Like, you know, I'll publish in some like smaller journals, and I might put out a book, or like every book I put out will be from a small press, and I will get like practically no advance, and it will sell maybe 500 copies. And I was like trying to make peace with that for a long time. And I felt like I had a lot of ambition that like I was like trying to squash down, because I was like, you know, be realistic.
Yes.
The world doesn't want these stories. But then lately I was like, no, I'm not going to accept that. And like people like Roxane Gay are really popular now, and I know like those people get tokenized and like become like literary darlings, but I think I think the world is opening up more. And in the last year I've sort of like tried to, you know, coach myself into becoming ambitious again, and having this dream of like publishing a mainstream book from a mainstream press, and being like, no, I deserve the same kind of advance as this cis white male dude that you gave this giant advance
or
to.
this more digestible version of marginalized identity.
And I think it's not just digestible, it's like what the white cis straight world wants to see, the kind of narrative that they want to see. So like when we're talking about Black narratives, the kind of narrative they want to see is like Blackness as in association with like drug use and poverty and struggle and death, and same thing with queerness.
Or alternatively, Blackness as started there and rose above individually without any help. Like the bootstrap narrative. One or the other.
And like with queerness, it seems to be they want like, you know, conversion therapy and deep religiousness, and like there are these
slowly
boxes.
Came out of the closet, and now like they live in the urban center and go dancing.
And they're on like a pride parade float,
and now their
like,
hair is shaved off. And they proudly wear baggy t-shirts. I know what you mean.
And like the narrative of the femme is not there, because it's just not. And similarly with like the narrative of trans people, I feel like gets sort of subsumed by this transition narrative, this transition memoir.
100%.
And like they want you to write what they want to see. They don't want like
100%. I know we're out of time.
Okay.
I had so many more thoughts. I love the direction this went, actually. We didn't end up getting to shout out the book that you wanted to read from.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. It's okay. But I really appreciated talking about this, actually. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I feel like I used to, when I first started my MFA, I was so ambitious. Like, I was just like, I want to get a PhD. I want to be a professor. I want to be like, well, I don't want to be Judith Butler now, but at the time, you know, it's like, I want to be like Judith Butler, who publishes a book, you know, with Omnidon or something. And now and then it slowly was like, oh, I'm a niche writer. Okay, I got it. And you know, which, those things are all fine. There's reasons to, but I was literally just telling my friend this morning, I was like, I think this is the year I'm going to try to be ambitious. So, thank you so much for being with us today.
Of course.
Thank you for going on all the meandering trails around feminist and queerness and being South Asian queer and fiction and prose and poetry and all of the different paths we took.
Thank you so much for having me. And this conversation was like really healing, I think.
It was for me as well. So that makes me feel really good. That's like the best thing someone can say at that. Everybody else, I hope it was also healing for you. Today's call for comments are, what pieces of yourself have you had to cut off or put away because of what we'll call femmephobia, for the sake of like, you know, being more inclusive. And if you had any questions, I always say this, but I'm going to always reiterate it. If anything in today's episode has left you more confused than like you're getting it, do not hesitate to say so in the comments. I respond more slowly to emails, truth be told. So truly, like, put them down there, but I will always respond and try to work it out with you. So please don't hesitate. This is an educational project. So those are the 2 calls for comments. Go check out all of your amazing work. Well, not your work, but all of your work. Where can people find your book?
It's called Marriage of a Thousand Lies, and you can get it from any bookstore or online, or from the Soho Press website.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And on this end, no book, but go to thepoetryblog.com and you'll find links to social media, ways to sign up for the newsletter, how to get stickers and magnets for free, because I like sending snail mail, and all the other things. All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a lovely day.